to make sure to touch on what Suzanne has already mentioned a couple of times, but the upcoming end of the public health emergency, which we all know has allowed more people to qualify and stay on Medicaid. But when the emergency expires, people may experience coverage changes or potentially lose coverage altogether. Knowing that this is coming, what do we expect to see happen for people who might lose their Medicaid and need to apply for enrollment in marketplace plans? And even more importantly, what should plans and policy members be thinking about and doing now to help prepare? And Suzanne, you've touched on this, so I'll start with you and then would love to hear from both Terry and Kevin on this as well.
Thanks, Kristen. So I think there's a lot there, and I will say that we feel pretty confident and comfortable with those Medicaid enrollees who, when redetermined, are over income, have account transfer processes in place for that information to directly go to the marketplace, and feel pretty comfortable about that, and have been working closely and coordinating with our partners at the marketplace for a good long while on unwinding. So they also have additional resources. Navigators have been mentioned, for that extra assistance in outreach and education. But another thing I don't think that we've really talked much about yet that I also think is important more from a policy perspective. I think, there's lots in the outreach and education and messaging space, making sure people know what to do to reduce those administrative losses of coverage. But beyond that, in the scenario where everything's working great, the member knows what to do, they're connected to a marketplace plan, really thinking about how we can streamline and smooth those transitions of coverage between Medicaid and the marketplace. One of the things that we've done in Nevada is actually require our managed care organizations to also participate on the marketplace. So currently, 3 of our 4 managed care organizations are also qualified health plans selling their products on the marketplace, and we have a new market entrant, which we're excited about. So they have a little bit of time to meet that requirement. But I think, in terms of the consumer experience, thinking through those different policy levers around how we can make that transition. We know people's incomes go up and down, and that there's a lot of churn in this population. So just really thinking through and trying to take advantage of some of those opportunities to smooth those transitions of coverage, aside from the really fundamental and important question that we're all grappling with right now, which is making sure that people know what to do and what options are available to them.
Terry or Kevin, how are you thinking about this?
Kevin, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that first and foremost, it comes down to the data of these individuals and making sure that you really have a way to get in touch with them. So putting the engagement aside, I love what you all are doing in Nevada with that requirement to participate in the marketplace, because it just feels like such a natural progression. And I'd imagine that, that does come with some challenges for these plans to have to meet these new requirements of operating in a state-based exchange. So I certainly think that, there are things that payers need to be considering as it relates to the marketplace and getting into a state-based exchange for the first time. The requirements are often somewhat different than what we're seeing on the federally facilitated marketplace. So I would just say that, to the payers out there, there are certainly considerations as it relates to operating in the ACA versus a Medicaid specific plan. But I certainly support that wholeheartedly to get those plans to participate in both of those programs.
Yeah, so great points by both Kevin and Suzanne. And I would say, Suzanne, you might be further along than maybe some other states in that philosophy or that crossover between Medicaid and marketplace. I think I had the opportunity about 2 weeks ago to be on a call with CMS, and they were reaching out looking for framing from the policy issue of how do we all collectively handle this transition from public health emergency, and what do we do when there is some determination that people are going to fall off eligibility. And so one of the things that we talked about in that discussion was the desire at the federal level to make sure that people had a seamless or a smooth transition. So to your requirement, and where we landed was state by state, there are such significant differences. So we're all still grappling a little bit for certainty and maybe a little bit of standardization. There's a desire to make sure that everybody has continuity of coverage. There's a desire to make sure that they know where they can go. Plans are a little bit selfish. So for example, if a particular plan or payer is in both Medicaid and the marketplace business, they certainly would want to maintain that customer. So is there a way that that can be auto enrolled and then the reach out to the customer? In a particular state that I've done business in, we talked to folks that said the Medicaid administrator provides lists when folks roll off, even whether it's a public health emergency or not, so people can have some place to go for coverage and they can get an outreach. So I think increasingly the federal government, the state governments, the plans and the platforms, along with brokers and outreach, we're all going to have to figure out new ways to engage, again, to keep the member whole and as informed as possible. I think this is going to be an interesting transition with all this new competition, all the additional folks that have come. My God, a 35% increase in your state alone. That is a whopping amount of additional folks to take care of and to do it in an appropriate and empathetic way as they transition to other areas. We want to keep that going as much as possible. I think this will be really interesting over this next year once public health emergency does officially end and we go back to some sort of attempt at returning to normalcy in terms of process and procedure. We're going to have to continue to work together to do better, I think, in the industry.
Yeah, and if I could just, those are all great points, Terry. Add on to one thing, I think, it's absolutely critical for us to work closely with our managed care organizations. In Nevada, they serve about 75% of our population. So love that example that you give of providing the list of people that were up for redetermination or renewal and leveraging some of the resources that they have to help provide outreach and education and make sure that those members have a smooth transition. So that's certainly a piece of what we're thinking about is, how can we work strategically with all of our partners, but especially our managed care organizations to help with this unwinding process. So
great point.
Thank you for that.